Okay, we're going to do a little unboxing of the Garmin nuvi 40 LM. This is a very inexpensive automotive GPS, and I think this would work pretty good for snowmobiling or ATV use. You just have to be a little careful about making it waterproof because this isn't a waterproof model. So we'll just show you what's in the box here. The first thing. Pop it open. I've already taken this out of the box. This is the GPS itself. Nice little lightweight unit. It's a 4-inch screen, and Garmin makes the 30 model, which is a 3.5-inch screen. The 40 model, which this one is a 4-inch screen, and then they make the 50 series also, and that's a 5-inch screen. So this is a nice compromise, not too large, not too small, kind of in the middle. You get this little suction cup type mount that the GPS snaps into. Well, this is, really made to stick on either your windshield, or sometimes they have little discs that you can stick on your dashboard. Generally, this is not rugged enough mount for use on an ATV or a snowmobile. Chances are it's going to bounce off with the vibration, so you really need to get a ram mount, and they're much more secure, and you can bolt them right onto your machine. This is nice for use in the car. Then they give you a little power cord, and you can see it has this relatively large size plug on the end that plugs right into a regular cigarette lighter. Generally on a snowmobile or an ATV, if you just plug this into a cigarette lighter outlet, if you have one, they have a tendency to vibrate around a little bit. You're better off to get a separate little cigarette lighter plug this into it, and then tape it together so it holds securely. And then you can hardwire that plug directly to your battery on your machine. Keep the GPS powered at all times, because the batteries in this, the rechargeable battery, will only run for about 2 hours before it runs out of battery. So you definitely want to have it plugged in. If you want to hardwire it, do not cut this end off, because this is actually a little voltage reducer that reduces to 5 volts from 12 volts. If you cut this off and hook it directly to your battery, it'll burn out your GPS. Next little piece is they give you a little USB cable. You can plug this into your computer, use that to download maps to it. You can also plug it in if you have one of those wall mount chargers that you use for your cell phone. Plug it into that, it'll charge the batteries. What else do they have in here? Looks like quick start manual. These are pretty rudimentary, but I think you'll find that this model GPS is really pretty easy to use. Some other little paperwork and warranty, and tells you how you can register to get the free lifetime automobile maps. That's the difference between just the 40 series and the 40 LM. LM stands for lifetime maps. If you're going to use this in your automobile, which really makes sense to use the GPS all year round, the LM is a good option to have, because that way you can get updated maps anytime they change the highways, add a new road, have a detour. You can use those. This is a little case. This happens to be made by Garmin. I definitely recommend you get a little case to protect you, be able to slide this in if you're carrying this in a purse or your glove compartment. That way the screen doesn't get scratched up, keeps the dust off it. Unfortunately, it isn't provided in this box. You have to buy it separately. You might have some other case sitting around the house that you can use, but it's a good idea to have something like that to protect it. So basically, that's what's in the box. This part of the demonstration, I will show you how to start the GPS and use our trail maps. The easiest way to do it by far is the little micro SD chip. Normally, if you just download the map, you have to install it on a computer, copy over some files, run an installation. So the simplest way is just to get it on micro SD, and this micro SD includes the trail maps, such as a snowmobile trail map or an ATV map. In this case, we'll do an ATV map. And it also includes a free topographical map that can be used as the background for the trail maps. The trail maps do not have things like lakes and roads and mountains, those type of things on them. So it's really nice, instead of just having a very rudimentary looking trail map, is to have the trail map superimposed over a very detailed topographical map. Since the trail maps route you along trails, you don't want to have it over top of a highway map, which also routes, because then your GPS isn't going to know, do I want to go on a trail or do I want to go on a highway? Generally, it will probably try to take you on a highway because they're faster. So you disable your highway maps and then use it on a over top of a topographical map. And the beauty of that is that they show up on our micro SD. There's also a downloadable format where you can create your own micro SD. And that's recommended for people who have Macintosh computers, because our map installer doesn't work on anything other than a PC. The micro SD chip comes in a adapter, and this is an SD card adapter. So a lot of computers have a little thing you can plug this into. It also makes it a little easier to find. Inside that, you just use your fingernail and pull out. This is actually the micro SD chip that plugs into the GPS. To plug that in, on one side of the GPS, there's a little slot, and you just slide it in, and it doesn't really click, but it should be in there relatively solid. And then the only other obvious connector on here, or control, is the power on switch, which is a little black button at the top. You press that, the Garmin logo will come up. It'll say that it's loading the maps. You see at the very bottom there's a copyright from Bagog's Designs. That means it's found the trail maps. Seems like all the time they're wanting to ask for this if you agree to their license agreements. And you can read that whole thing first time you do it, but generally once you realize that in order to use the GPS you have to accept all of them, just to hit accept. Next is a little warning saying that it's dangerous to try to manipulate, enter a route, or adjust the GPS while you're driving. Mainly it's an issue of attention, so you can click past that. The next thing it says is it found extras on the data card, and you can copy them to the main GPS memory, so it's available once you remove the card. That's really talking about the optional points of interest file. You can just leave it on the card. You don't have to copy it. You don't have to put it on the GPS. And it comes up with a nice bright screen. This is very viewable in daylight. There's an indicator on the left-hand side of whether you're receiving satellites or not. Your battery condition is there. There's settings that looks like a little wrench. You can change the volume of it. I'll do that because I have it pretty low. Make it so it's nice and loud. You can hear every time you click on a button, it gives you a little beep sound. In this situation where I'm indoors, I'm going to do a simulation. So, meaning that I'm not actually moving with the GPS. I'm going to go into a simulation mode. This is actually a really nice way to practice using your GPS and routing. So I'll say Settings, System, and there it says GPS Simulator. So I will say on to the GPS Simulator and turned on for indoor use. Sometimes it'll automatically, if you're inside and you don't get a satellite, it'll ask if you want to turn into that. Now I'll just hit the return button, get back to this is the main menu here. The next step I could do would be to view the map. And it'll take me to the last location where I was actually at. I'll zoom out. And that's a pretty wide zoom. See, this is the whole state of New Hampshire. And I'll zoom in to the upper part of, oh, scrolled over into Maine. Center the map around the northern part of New Hampshire, and then I'll hit the plus button to zoom in. And if you zoom in far enough, you begin to see little blue lines here. Those are actually ATV trails. I happen to know just by the look of it that there's Berlin, New Hampshire, and there's that complicated trail system off to the west is Jericho Mountain. Zoom in a little farther, and what I'll do is I'm going to point to a location on the map. It picks a spot that it has found on the map, and because we're in simulation mode, I'm going to say set location. That means set the simulated location. So this is as if I was actually at this location. Okay, you see a little car appear there? That's the vehicle icon. Zoom in a little farther. Maybe I'll set it, I'll just move it around a little bit. Over there, ATV Trail. Do a set location there. So I'm probably right on an ATV trail. I zoom in close enough, do that to make the pop-up disappear. See, it's on some unnamed ATV trail. Right now, the vehicle icon is an automobile. One of the things that's on the micro SD is a little vehicle icon that looks like an ATV. And you have to copy that to the correct location, your Garmin vehicle folder on the main storage of the device. It's best to do that with a computer. But I've already done that, so if I go back to the main screen and that's the map screen. Main screen, settings, navigation. No, that's not what I wanted. I wanted the map. Okay, these are the map settings. So the map detail is normal. Map view is 3D. The vehicle, there's a list of vehicles, and I can change that. Right now, it's pointing at an automobile. So if you're using in a car, you can have an automobile, and you can get these at no cost from the Garmin website. We put either one for a snowmobile, for snowmobile maps, or an ATV with our ATV maps. There's a snowmobile icon, and then here's an ATV icon. So this isn't necessary to do, but it's kind of a fun thing to do. Say done. The other relatively useful information that's on the map settings screen is the info. You click on info and it says which maps are enabled. There's one that says NE USA Topo Part 1. That's the one that comes on the micro SD card. It's a free topographical map that you can get off the internet. We provided it no charge on our micro SD card. There's another map that says backwards GPS trails. That says New Hampshire, Maine, ATV. So that's our ATV map. The other one is the built-in map that's built into your GPS, which is your automobile map. It's CN, North America, NT, lower 49 states. That one you normally want to shut off when you're on the trails, because if you don't, you try to route someplace, it may take you on a highway. You shut off the highway map, hit the back button, and there's one little trick. If you hold the back button, it'll take you back to the main screen quickly instead of pressing beep, beep, beep to get back there. Do a map view, and now you'll see, you know, what looks like the trails laid out in front of you. That's called 3D mode. If you click on the map, then it goes into a north up mode, and then you can scroll around, see the trail systems. And here you see, you know, you see some water features. That big yellow line is a highway. The blue lines are the ATV trails. There's our vehicle icon. You could shut off the, go back to the map settings, map, info, and then we could actually shut off the topographical map and see what the view looks like there. hold the button, get back, view the map. Now you see there's not all the little lines with the topographical detail, but there still is some information there around the highways. There's Route 110 through Berlin, so that is a little helpful. And then there's sort of this shaded relief background if you go into the north up mode. That doesn't display in the 3D perspective view, but it's still nice. You can kind of see, well, you know, here's the big white mountains around the area of Jericho Park, so that's probably going to see some pretty nice scenery if you're riding up around that way. Now we'll try to do a simulated route. So say I'm at this location someplace in Jericho Park and I want to go someplace else. One of the things you could do would be to search for a point of interest. So we have a lot of points of interest on there, such as places you could stay, lodging, scenic outlooks. There's cell phone towers, so if you're someplace you can't get a cell phone signal, you want to call somebody and give them your status, you can find a nearest cell phone tower and then drive near that, and then you could probably use your cell phone. There's not many of those up in the North Country. You could just simply point to a location on the map, use that to identify a destination. So if I say, well, I want to go over on these trails over here, you just click on the map. Actually, you have to go into the north up mode. I'll zoom in a little bit. Let's say we'll go over to, I know these are the success trails. I'll point there. So ATV Trail, the name of it is 7 Boys Lookout. And you'll notice that there's a go button shows up on the screen. And I could just say go, and this will calculate a route to that location. Because I'm in simulation mode, it asks me if I want to simulate actually
please drive to highlighted route,
driving that route, and I will say yes. And in that way, the GPS...
9.5 miles, then bear right on Berlin City Trail.
Okay, my volume's up pretty high, so I may go back to the main menu, and I'll adjust the volume down a little bit. Yeah, 60% should be enough. Go back to the map, and you can see it's simulating driving us down the ATV Trail.
Bear right on Berlin City Trail.
And this shows your next turn in 0.2 miles. She's speaking to you. You may not be able to hear that in if you have a helmet on, if your snowmobile or ATV is very loud, but there's plenty of visual
Bear
indicators.
Right on Berlin City Trail.
Some models of GPS that you pay a little more for will have Bluetooth.
Drive 2 miles, then turn left on City Trail Mannering Street.
The other thing that you can do is you can click on this, and it will give you a list of all the turns and the distance between turns. And then you can also preview that by say show it on the map, and it shows you the whole trail system that you're going to traverse. That I don't know, a pinkish magenta color is the route that was calculated for you. And it gives you an overall distance here of 7.6 miles. It estimates the time, but that's based on somewhat arbitrary speed limits that are plugged into the programmed into the GPS map. You may or not be able to go that fast, and you may not want to go that fast. So that time estimate is really pretty rough. The distance estimate is probably within feet. That's very accurate. Okay, again, we're in this mode. We can scroll around the map even as we're routing and kind of see where we're at. It's almost like a top perspective view, or it's north up. You can also do a track up position, but I won't show that in this demonstration. I'll just go back to the 3D mode, which you find more useful because you can sort of see the perspective of how the trails are going to come in and out. And generally, the most you should probably ever do while you're actually riding is click on the zoom in and out button. You know, you really don't want to be messing around with it. If you do, pull over to the side, stop, set up what route you want to calculate, hit go, and then concentrate on driving your vehicle safely. Again, at the bottom here, it says you'll arrive in 6.7 miles. Indicates your speed limit. You can see other trails coming up as you go. If you turn on the topographical map, settings, map, info. You turn on the topographical map and go back to the map view, and you see lots more detail. You see all the highway streets. So we're actually going through the town of Berlin here. We're going down, heading south. The next turn will be on Mannering Street. That's actually a city highway, city road right in the middle of Berlin. And then you'll go across the bridge. So you see there's quite a bit of activity. You also see the elevation lines. You know what the topography is like. Zoom out a little bit more, or look at it in the top-down perspective. That's like looking at a normal paper map.
2 miles. Turn left on City Trail, Mannering Street.
This little segment, I'll address the issue of waterproofing the GPS. This is a nuvi 40LM. Generally, automotive units that Garmin sells are not waterproof. You have to get into a hiking model, which generally have smaller screens. And, some of their top-of-the-line ones, like the Montera or the Montana, $500 or $600, $700 GPS, those are waterproof. Have a lot of bells and whistles that you really don't need. But what most people think is, oh, I'm going to be out there riding my ATV. It might rain on me. I'm going to be on a snowmobile. Snow might get splashed on it. I really want one waterproof. This unit here is actually it's not waterproof, but it's not bad. You look around the edges of it, it looks like it's sealed pretty good. You might get some moisture in there if it's in the pouring rain. A couple things you might do is just put a tape over the speaker, because that's a potential area where water can get in. So a piece of tape over that, and it doesn't reduce the volume or really have any negative impact on the sound quality coming out. The other possible entrance hole is the USB connector. This is very similar to the ones that are on the waterproof models, so I don't know that that's a real big risk. And you'd have a rubber plug on that to protect that to some degree. And normally the GPS is sitting at a slight angle, so it's actually shaded a little bit by the GPS from direct rain coming in it. You might get some runoff. And probably the most critical area is the micro SD slot. And again, a piece of tape over that would help to seal that. But one of the other ways to do it is you can buy boxes. They might be about $30 that can go on a RAM mount. They have a tendency to be a little large. They don't exactly fit the GPS because they're made to fit multiple models of them. And by the time you're done with that, you might spend 40 or 50 bucks. You spent almost as much as you spent on a GPS. So another method that's a possibility is something as simple as a Ziploc bag. Pop out a Ziploc bag, zip it up. As you can see, you can still see the map very clearly. You might get some fogging if it's a very wet, damp day and there's a difference in temperature between the GPS and the outdoor temperature. Just carry a couple more. One fogs up, pop on another one. Now through the plastic, it'd be nice if you can try to organize it in a holder so the plastic is stretched pretty firm over the front. And then you try clicking on the buttons and they all work quite well, even through the plastic. So this is not a capacitive touch screen like some tablets are or your cell phone is, where you actually have to have a capacitive connection. This is different technology that just a bit of pressure works on it. And you can even do this with gloved hands, which is another beauty of pretty much all the Garmin GPSs.